the traditional leaders of the South, right? The planters, the wealthy, the influential, they got voted back into office. And many of these were former Confederate leaders. Okay? And so they're back in positions of political power due to the policies of President Johnson because he gave everyone a pardon and he gave them back their voting rights, their political rights, their legal rights. And so what does this lead to now that these individuals are back in power? Well, it leads to a number of repressive laws that restrict the freedoms of African Americans. And these are known as the Black Codes. And so, for example, African Americans can't vote during these first 2 years of Reconstruction because, the traditional Southern leaders are in power. Limited legal rights as well, where the legal system is not going to work for African Americans because of some of these laws that are instituted under the Black Codes. Okay, so what are some of these laws? Well, just like before the Civil War, African Americans could not testify in court against a white Southerner, okay, or an Anglo-American, period. All right, so that means that even if an African American person is attacked, or they're robbed, or their property is destroyed or stolen, they can't necessarily take a white American to court because they can't testify against them. Their testimony won't count. That basically is taking away their legal protection, right? And so that's one aspect of these limited legal rights under the Black Codes. African Americans also could not serve on juries. So if an African American person is taken to court and the jury is supposed to decide their fate, it's a jury of all white citizens, right? And so in a racist environment, that could definitely contribute to a person getting convicted, probably, possibly wrongfully convicted. Then you have the issue of forced labor. How is labor being forced upon African Americans under the Black Codes? Well, basically, you have African Americans being forced to sign yearly labor contracts. Okay, so it's like if African Americans are going to go work for somebody as a wage laborer, earning wages on an hourly basis or whatever, they have to sign a year-long contract, and they can't break that contract. So they're stuck working for that white landowner if they're working in agriculture. They have to work for this person for a year because they have to sign a contract. And so that's a major issue because you don't have the freedom to just leave if you want to. If you wanted to quit, you can't because you signed a year-long contract, right? And even there's the case of Black children being forced to work for white landowners as well, right? You would have white judges forcing Black children to work for white landowners even without their parents' consent, right? This is happening in some states in the South, right? So if you're looking at it, these laws are set up to force African Americans to work for white landowners to kind of maintain something similar to the system of slavery. You know what I mean? Like maybe they're getting paid a wage, but it's probably a very small wage, and you still have these white landowners benefiting from their labor. So this is all going to lead to a reaction within Congress, right? Within the National Congress. At this time, the ruling party is the Republican Party. That's the party of Abraham Lincoln, right? But you also have some Democrats, of course, that are still in Congress. There's Northern Democrats and a lot of Southern Democrats. The Southerners weren't admitted back into Congress just yet, but you still have some Northern Democrats. But it's the Republicans who are in charge at this time. Okay, and there were a number of Republicans, particularly those called the radical Republicans, who did not agree with the policies of President Johnson. Okay, individuals like Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner, right? These type of individuals wanted to see Reconstruction take on a whole different form. Okay, instead of putting the former Confederate leaders back into political power, the radical Republicans wanted to see a more equal society where African Americans enjoyed equal rights, right? Legal rights, legal protections, right? Land ownership, education. This is what the radical Republicans envisioned when they thought about Reconstruction. Okay, so you're going to have these leaders like Thaddeus Stevens start to step up and influence Congress to pass laws that are going to change the direction of Reconstruction.